So, listen, thanks for joining us, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Rossa, Associate Director in Sigmar Recruitment, and joining me today is Adrienne Kiely from Shopify.
Hi, Rossa. Hi, everyone. Thanks for dialing in.
Yeah, cheers, folks. I suppose if you could talk to us, Adrienne, you're a real remote worker. The rest of us are probably fake remote workers. We've been landed into it, you know, and we're probably not really even properly working from home. So, and it hasn't been our choice, but it was a definite choice for you. Can you talk to us about your story, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm delighted to have been asked to talk about it, because I like to talk about the different versions, and me and you have talked about this ourselves, Rossa. So I'm with Shopify 2 years. So when you say I'm a real remote, I suppose I'm in it for pre-COVID. So a lot of people are finding themselves remote, not out of choice. So I would have come from a traditional in-office, in-house HR role before I joined Shopify. I was 100% in office. I wouldn't have even worked a morning from home. And then I heard Shopify were looking for someone, and I joined Shopify 2 years ago, just coming up in a couple of weeks. And that was 100% remote role. So when I say it was my choice, I interviewed and spoke to Shopify for months about this job. So I had a lot of time to think about it and prepare for what remote could and would look like. Now, like everything, you don't know it until you're in it, but at least I had some time to make the decision if it was right for me, set up a home working space, think about the routine I could have, and how I will adapt and adopt to that new work environment. A lot of people find themselves in remote work not out of choice, out of necessity, you know. So I think that's the big difference for me, and I'm very grateful. I'm delighted still to have my job, and I'm grateful for having gone through this for a company that was set up. We didn't have to go into an emergency crisis management situation where people had to set up at home offices. We were all set up already working from home.
I think, because I think the biggest surprise for people is that, like, for years we've been talking about remote work, and we've seen it even in Sigmar, that slowly and surely more and more people have had the ability to do at least some remote work from home. But it's always been kind of set up as this, I'll be on the laptop on the beach, you know what I mean, that it's great, it's so much fun. And the reality is a lot different. What did you find was the major differences, even though you prepared for it and you were expecting a little more than the rest of us? What was the major difference for you?
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point, because although I did have time to think about it and weigh up the pros and cons, you know, I really wanted to work for Shopify. The role was right up my alley. I wanted to make an impact. I knew I could. You don't know until you're in it. Me and you have spoken about, I've spoken quite a lot about it. We speak about it in Shopify, the stock photos of remote work versus the reality. So when I say stock photos, it's the people sitting on the beaches with you know, walking their dog and answering emails on their phone. You know, that's not like true life remote work. I think people are realizing that now. You know, people sipping cocktails on a Friday afternoon and doing a Zoom call, like, it's just not like practical. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I just don't think it's long-term practical, you know, and it's not sustainable, and it's not really what remote work from home. And I keep saying work from home because that's what a true remote role is, 100% working from your home space. The biggest thing I didn't see coming, and I struggled with, and I've spoken about this at events, and I'm quite comfortable to speak about it, was the isolation factor. Right. I didn't think about it because why would I? I had come from a company where there was 1,500 people on site. I worked in a team of HR people that I saw all the time. They were brilliant. I joined Shopify and worked for a great team, but I never saw them in real life. I never got to have coffees with them, and I mean day to day. You know, Shopify does pop-up offices monthly. We do events, summer events, Christmas events, like every other company, but our 95% of our time is working from our home spaces, and that isolation was tough. And I joined Shopify this time 2 years ago. So the first winter I worked from home, I struggled. I struggled being on my own and the long days. I'm quite a sociable person, I realized. And I'm in HR because I love working with people. And I struggled with that. And that was a transitionary period because I needed to find ways to get over that, to survive working remotely. And there's ways and means of doing that, I firmly believe.
Do you think it's actually helped you prepare for what we're going through now with the COVID-19 isolation?
Yeah, it has in one regard. In another regard, it's isolation on isolation.
Right.
So, um, and I have to be very careful because I don't want to come across, not even I don't, I want to make sure that people understand that I can empathize with what they're going through because I went through it. What I empathize mostly with people at the moment is that they hadn't a choice, and I had a choice to do this. So when I had to set up a new routine or set up hobbies or build my work-life balance, I was doing it through a transitionary period. People are doing it now with COVID on top of that.
Hmm.
So I think whether you're working remotely for the first time, working from home for the first time, or like me, you worked remotely before, there's the social isolation on top of the work from home isolation. Like as I go further into working from home, does the isolation lessen? Yeah, because I've struck a balance around my work life balance. But at the moment, COVID-19 globally has us all, our social life is out of whack. You know,
Yeah.
everything that we do normally is out of whack. So there's a portion of that unusual strangeness and that isolation that I also bring because socially we can't do what we want to do and what we would normally do. And to break the sometimes monotony of working from home 100%,
Hmm.
that's taken away from me now. So what
Yeah.
I would have used to use maybe as a crutch to ease it sometimes, you know, I would spend an afternoon in a cafe if I only had emails and no meetings, you know, I would spend 2 or 3 hours in the corner, and I liked that once or twice a month. You know, I would meet someone and have a business meeting. You know, Shopify would have pop-up offices. All of those things are gone now for remote, 100% remote people.
I
So
suppose
yeah.
like this is my first time, working from home, and I suppose it's probably I don't have a true appreciation of it just yet because while I'm working from home, I'm not really working from home in the sense that you've worked from home, as you said, that you could balance your social life, you could strike a balance with it. We're all kind of we're stuck in with members of our family or other,
Yeah.
or housemates or things like that. So it maybe isn't it isn't maybe it's not as isolating in some ways because there's more people around you, but it's also more isolating in other ways. But you
Yeah.
mentioned something about being able to strike that balance, and like when this does pass and more people elect to work from home, it's important to strike that balance between your home life and your working life. Did you find that you worked more when you worked from home initially, or less?
Um, I don't know whether it's a more or less. I think it's a different. And to answer your question honestly, I suppose I work differently now. You know, I've a couple of things. I've learned a whole different skill set. So you know how we're talking today. You know, when I had to, as a business partner, my role is predominantly in meetings. Whether I'm in in office role or in a role working from home, you're in meetings. So that found me on camera a lot, and that
Yeah.
was a whole like I didn't there's no module in a HR degree or diploma that teaches you how to do HR over camera or any job over camera.
Yeah.
Working from home develops this whole new skill set of communicating over camera. I think as Irish people too, culturally, we're so used to the rapport and the relationship building in person and the going for the cups of tea and the walking down the corridors and the talking about the things. I miss that. I really, really missed that part of it. My biggest thing was I had to strike a balance of cutting my work life and my personal life and separating them, and that's very hard when you go and you probably, everyone listening today and watching this understands that now. And it can be done, but you have to put measures in place, such as I have the luxury now. We moved house, so I have my own office. Before, my office was in our living space,
Yeah.
so that's very tough. And a lot of people watching today, that will be the case because they don't have the space. They don't have the ability to have a spare room that they can turn out, over a weekend into an office. I'm very lucky. I can do that, but that was a deal breaker for me to stay remote with Shopify. I needed the office and I need to be able to close the door. I don't open the door. I'm the weirdo. I can't even come into this room at the weekends because that's work. The work
Yeah.
brain turns on. I'm a very visual person, but I needed the office space. That's a big thing. If you're going to stay after COVID, if you're going to elect or ask your employer to give you partial or full access to remote or work from home work, you really need to think carefully around your environment, your office space, and how doable and how flexible you can do that, because it's a big thing. It is a big thing for me anyway.
Yeah, I think people, like, one of the first things I discovered was that working from a laptop isn't going to work. You need, as you said when we were talking at the start of this call, headsets are absolutely essential.
Yeah.
I've my office chair, even like I think there's a lot of people said, oh, if we provide broadband on a laptop, you can work from home. You can't, in my experience. Like, you do need
Yeah.
you need the proper equipment, you need the proper technology.
Yeah, you could, if you provide people with high grade technology and a laptop, they can work anywhere, is what I would argue. If you want them to work from home, I feel, and Shopify does it well. We have a support around ergonomics. So this chair, I'm sitting on, we get people with ergonomic assessments, and we're still doing them virtually if they need to do them, to make sure that they're sitting correctly. We have a bit of a budget to get, so I got a nice table, a printer, I've got a second screen, I've got a riser for the laptop. And this isn't, I'm not meaning this to be boastful or that we're an affluent company. To set up, in that regard,
Yep.
to set up working from home, they felt that it was a good idea
Yep.
to spend resources in the space that you are set up correctly. And it definitely improves productivity. Like, is there the odd morning I'll bring the laptop downstairs just for a change of scene for an hour to answer emails? Yeah, but I quickly get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I associate, like I do associate, if you were going into an office, you associate it with work. I associate this room, this is where I come to do my day's work. I work an 8 to 4, a 9 to 5, a 10 to 6, like everyone else. I take a lunch break like everyone else. The difference is the people that I meet throughout the day are the way that me and you are meeting today, Rossa. So that's the way I do my job. And I've spoken at a good few events, and quite a few of them being HR related, and the audience of the people being HR. And I'm asked a lot, the role that I do, can you do it remotely? I have to, I have no choice. And I've set up ways to do it. I would argue you can do nearly any job in the world, but the employer has to come to the table with you, and they need to be able to provide you with the resources, such as a good laptop, additional resources like chair, desk, screen, and also high grade technology. Communication is king. If you're working remotely or working from home, communication is such a massive part of how it's going to be success or not, and that's really, really important.
You mentioned this, like, as much as they have to invest in their employees, they have to be able to trust their employees. And I think a lot of the times, up to a couple of years ago anyway, it's like working from home was kind of, it was seen as maybe a bit of a jolly, and that you could, or I suppose it was that impression that the people wouldn't be as productive, that your staff wouldn't be as productive, that they wouldn't be as invested in it. But
Yeah.
it's that ability to trust people to be able to do the job that's key to making this whole thing work.
Yeah. And like we touched on it earlier, and I'll come back to the trust item, but just around the productivity, I said I work differently as opposed to more or less remotely. I think there's a driver to get your once you strike the balance of working your hours, your 35, 40, whatever weekly hours you're meant to work. Once you strike the balance and get those hours done in your Monday to Friday, you'll feel a great sense of achievement. A lot of people that start working from home find they dip out in and out of work throughout the day, evening and night, and you need to get very strict on yourself. I'm, again, lucky Shopify has built their company on a foundation of trust. Our CEO, Toby Luckey, he speaks about trust all the time. It's a foundational aspect of the way Shopify operate their business. They drive values of autonomy. They want us to be autonomous. They want us to use our own heads to make our own decisions. So we're lucky that there's a foundation of trust. It's a requirement. It's not even like a need in order for remote work to work properly. And this is for people north of 50. If you're asking people to work remotely, or they're asking you and you're thinking of agreeing it, anywhere like 40, 50, 60, 70 to 100%, there needs to be an element of trust, or else collaboration, productivity, it's not going to work, because trust needs to come first. Trust is a hard thing because it's really built into the culture. It's you can't see it, you can feel it, but you can't see it. Can you write about it? It's very hard to pinpoint, and people will argue with Shopify a lot. Well, if you don't spend time together, how can you feel it? You can, because you can feel it in the way we speak to each other, and we lead with good intent, and we make decisions autonomously, and we're allowed to do that. That's how our leadership team has developed us all. But it's, our CEO talks a lot about it's what people do in general, or what people do in work when other people aren't watching them.
Yeah.
And that was a truer thing to be said when you're working remotely. There's no one looking at you, you know. What you do is based on your own motivation and your trust in your employer and your want to do your job. Um, I, I think a lot of people before would have seen working from home as a maybe a perk. Maybe employers thought that they used to offer it as a perk. Um, I'm as productive, if not more, working remotely for all the reasons I've told you, you know, and I want to have my time in the evenings, and I want to be able to shut the door in this office and be able to know that I've had a productive day. But a lot of that comes through the culture of the company that I work from.
It's an interesting point. We spoke about it before, that like sometimes is that if you're working from an office, sometimes the culture becomes, well, I've turned up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So therefore, that's
yeah,
half the productive day sorted. While when you're working from home, you're really, I think you're a lot more focused on your inputs and outputs, rather than just you know, sitting at your desk and whiling away the hours, maybe being very unproductive. So I
yeah,
think it can be actually, I suppose it's probably in some ways I found myself more productive because I've been more focused on, okay, what am I going to do now that's going to make a difference, you know?
yeah. And as well, you know, I think we touched on this, Rossa, before when we spoke, but I've mentioned it quite a few times, and we need to get comfortable, both, you know, employees and employers need to get comfortable with the fact that not everyone is suited to or wants to work from home.
Yeah.
You know, at the moment, unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of people that we have to, because we're getting through a global pandemic, and we need a certain amount of business to continue, and for continuity we need to set up environments to work from home. But after COVID-19, will some employers default to want to put a lot of their employees, some or all, remote, and will some of their employees not want to do that? Absolutely, because the environment doesn't suit them. Or will they try it and still want the ability to maybe go back into the office partially or full time afterwards? You know, there will be probably um, a sense of allowing certain number of people back, drip by drip. You know, everyone's not gonna be able to go back into offices. Some will want to go back fully, some will want to stay working from home. But we need to get comfortable with the fact some people are not comfortable or suited to working from home. They need the office environment, they crave it, they need the structure, whatever the reasons. And some are motivated, they like it, they like the flexibility, you know, they like the environment that they set up at home. But there needs to be an acknowledgement that not everyone is suitable for working from home.
I think it's going to be one of the new things that you'll have on your CV. So, you know, the ability to work successfully from home, or, you know, prefer working in the office environment. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a new box that needs to be, or a new skill that needs to be addressed, or a new preference that needs to
absolutely.
be addressed, you know?
Yeah.
Final thought. Would you ever go back to an office?
Would I ever go back to an office? Yeah, like I'm a pretty open-minded person, you know. I love that and I mean, you know, I genuinely mean this. When I took on this journey with Shopify, I got addicted to the company. You know, when I was interviewing with them, I loved the company I was working with at the time. There was no issue. I loved the team I worked with, but I got addicted to Shopify. They were very new. This is 2.5 years ago, 100%. So they're 100% remote in Ireland. They're a mix of in office and remote globally in normal terms, you know, when pre-COVID and post-COVID. So they have in-office people and remote people, but everyone that works for Shopify in Ireland normally works from home. So that was really unusual. And I saw it as a challenge and an opportunity. And thank God I did, because I think I have learned skills that would have never have if I didn't take the plunge. Would I be maybe speaking to you today? Probably not, you know, because I wouldn't have taken the risk. So I love that I took it at the time that I did, and I now want to help employees and employers. Yeah, like, is there days that I miss being part of a team that sit around me, that you know, there's a tough day and you want to go for a walk with one of your colleagues, or you all go out for lunch on a Friday? Yeah, like I'm still human, you know, I do miss that. I still love Shopify, and I love the role, and I love the challenge and the impact that I have working remotely, and I love that I can go and speak about that confidently. So never say never. We'll see, but for the moment, you know, I'm very happy, but you never know. You never know what's around the corner.
Well, listen, I really appreciate all your wisdom and your thoughts, and it's been great
Thank
talking to
you.
you, Adrienne, and I'm sure everybody listening and everybody watching will feel the same. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Rossa. Bye, everyone.
Okay, I'll stop recording there.